proudly accept your nomination for president.
In modern American politics, this is a race like no other. A current president who stepped aside, a former president nearly assassinated twice, a Democratic candidate without a single primary win. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are battling in a divided America in a race that's too close to call. Every vote counts in the U.S. and all over the globe. Nearly 3 million Americans living abroad are eligible to vote. At least 110,000 of them are in Australia.
Help us get Americans to vote from abroad.
On the streets of Sydney, the search for voters extended to hopeful call-outs to commuters.
Hello, are there any American citizens here who have not yet registered to vote or knows an American citizen who hasn't voted or registered to vote?
This was an effort to find eligible U.S. voters. But some campaigners are more targeted. This search is for Democratic votes.
Hey, Kate, it is Amy from Democrats Abroad.
American Amy Saha has been in Australia for 17 years. This is an example of what she calls a power hour.
And are you registered to vote from Pennsylvania? I am. Oh, great to hear. We get people together on a Zoom, and we will call fellow Americans who have said, yep, I'm comfortable getting phone call to be reminded or to get help on how to vote from abroad.
Voting in the U.S. is not compulsory, and in 2022, only 3% of Americans in Australia eligible to vote actually voted in the midterm elections. The presidential election will be decided in key states by margins in the thousands.
Every single vote is going to count, especially if it's from Pennsylvania, from Minnesota, from Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, there's a list of battleground states. We will stay on the phone with you if you're from Pennsylvania.
Joe Biden takes the lead in Pennsylvania, a major development right now.
So, could several thousand votes from Australia make a difference? Ben Riley from the United States Study Center at the University of Sydney says, you bet.
I think 3,000 or 4,000 voters from Australia at the last election who were, US citizens who cast a vote. Let's say that doubles or even triples. So say you've got maybe 10,000 votes, and some of those swing states are going to be exceptionally close, including the ones that really matter, like Pennsylvania. Then sure, it could make a difference.
Democrats abroad, how do you cast your vote?
Overseas voters have a higher profile in the Democratic Party, even featuring in their national convention in August. Hey! Republicans have traditionally enjoyed strong support from U.S. military personnel on bases around the world. But Ben Riley says international U.S. civilians skew Democrat.
Well, there tend to be people who are less rooted in place, maybe have higher education levels so they can get a job overseas. Those are what, we call the sort of anywheres, and they're more likely to be Democratic voters.
They allowed common street criminals.
That seems apparent at gatherings like this, organized by American supporters of Democratic candidate Kamala Harris.
Look what we're up against. We're up against, and I don't want to be mean, but someone who's had his chance, and we cannot allow him to come back.
There are no doubt many Americans here backing Donald Trump, but they are harder to find. Greg Swenson runs Republicans Overseas in the UK, not Australia.
I don't personally know who's running Republicans Overseas Australia. I'm sure there's somebody. I have to admit that the Democrats are probably better organized. They're an official arm of the Democratic National Committee or the party in general. And, we're more of a loosely organized, civic and grassroots kind of organization. We don't get funded by the party.
Republicans Overseas are also scrambling for every vote, but Swenson is confident.
on the surface, it looks like, Kamala's up by a couple of points nationally. It's a dead heat in the swing states, but I think that's ultimately going to favor Trump because at this point in 16 and 20, he was way down in the polls. So he typically outperforms the polling up to an election.
Executive Director of the Lowy Institute, Michael Fullilove, says as far as Australians are concerned, there's a clear favorite.
A new Lowy Institute poll reveals that almost 3/4 of Australians, or 73%, would prefer Kamala Harris to be elected president in November, and fewer than 1/4 of Australians, or 22%, would like to see Mr. Trump elected president in November.
22% favoring Trump sounds bad. In fact, it's the best any Republican candidate has ever done in the Lowy Institute poll.
Mr. Trump is the most popular Republican candidate for president when it comes to Australians that our polling has recorded. Of course, before Mr. Biden pulled out, he was polling at 29%. Now he's polling at 22%, so Kamala Harris has pushed those numbers down for him.
Of course, where it really counts, in America, the vote will be much closer. In 5 weeks, the world will know.